survivor's guilt.
Yeah.
Not if you act. Okay, Bismillah. So the question is, we talked about survivor's guilt in my portion, and the question is, isn't it questioning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's decree to even have survivor's guilt? So as we mentioned, the feeling when it comes in the heart, this is a moment of a test, right? What are you going to do with that feeling? So I see the homeless person and I look at him and I say, look at me, I have this giant house, I have food on call, I have everything that I want, and he's like this. I feel so bad. I feel so bad that I have everything, he has nothing, right? So as we said, if you use that to turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, alhamdulillah alladhi afani, as we said, then that survivor's guilt is cancelled. In that sense of I feel bad that I shouldn't be in this position, because you realize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put me in a good position and has blessed me in it. I must thank Him for it. And then the second step is, do I do something to help him? In whatever way within my capacity. But if it's the other way, where you have this feeling and you're just posting online, we're all suffering from survivor's guilt, it's just so horrible, it's so horrible, it's so horrible, and nothing else comes from this feeling other than further despair, then it is a questioning of perhaps Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's decree. Yes?
Can you ever get over survivor's guilt? Let's say you see a bad image, because when you were talking about survivor's guilt, I'm way too familiar with that area over there. So can you ever just try to unseen what you just saw, even though what you're seeing is bad and you do want to help it? It's like you said, you have to take care of yourself, you need to take care of your heart, because seeing those kinds of images can really do something to a person, psychologically.
Bismillah. So the question is, can you ever undo the effect of having seen that scene, SCENE, or that image? Can you undo the effect of it and get rid of the survivor's guilt? Are you talking specifically about survivor's guilt or just being affected by a bad image? Because survivor's guilt is something very specific, right? So, okay, but if we're talking about just any kind of a bad feeling that comes from seeing a bad scene or a bad image, yes, I do believe that you can get over it. Sometimes you might need a little bit of help from a spiritual guide, essentially, right? Like somebody who has some knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who could help you get through that. But, something that I heard from a pious person, I actually asked a very similar question to a sheikh once about, if everything in creation points to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and reminds us of Him and reminds us of our slavehood to Him and His greatness and His it points to Him in some way, then what if you've seen some really bad things? And he just said, you don't look. And what I understood that to be is you don't continue to bring that image to mind. And I realized that there are some practitioners of the way maybe some therapy and stuff is done in our day, is that we're asked to recall the thing that we suffered and to talk about it and how to and sort of bring it back into the forefront of our mind. And the adab that I've understood from my teachers is actually don't do that. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that was a moment of your life. He wanted something from you at that moment, right? That moment has passed. You are now in a different moment. Waqt, according to the Sufis, is what is between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at this moment now. At this moment now. What is between you and Him. That's waqt. That's how it's kind of like a spiritual meaning for it. And so if you're in that kind of a situation, what did we see from the Anbiya in the Qur'an? They say, وَإِذَا مَرِضْتُ فَهُوَ يَشْفِينِ. They don't say He made me sick. Right? They don't say Allah made me sick. They say when I get sick, He cures me. Right? the adab is completely different. And so, if we do see terrible images, as Imam Dawud, very eloquent. I want to thank you actually before anything. I mean, that was just really powerful, Imam Dawud, your reminders and your frankness and the truth that you conveyed in your words. Jazakumullahu khair. I apologize that I didn't say that earlier because it was really, really moving. And so, as Imam Dawud, may Allah preserve him, how he mentioned, if you're in a position to do something, to remedy something that you have seen that is ongoing, then do it. But otherwise, don't keep revisiting it, because you're only taking yourself farther from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All of what we have on this earth is fani anyways. It's all disappearing, including that bad stuff, including my own self, right? What lasts is, what did I leave in that moment for Allah? All of us, every single one of us. That's the only thing that lasts. And so I think reflecting on these kinds of things will help dissipate the imprint of the image to make it sort of... Bismillah. Yeah.
I have something else to say in regards to Tawbah and enjoying good for being evil, because sometimes we talk about what we shouldn't do a lot, and we need to also mention what we should do. So number one, Dr. Fareeha mentioned, I want to double click on that. But this is the time when we are feeling restless and maybe we are feeling discomfort, that we all should strive. If we are not getting up, we should get up early and make tahajjud. Mm-hmm. And I recommend at least making 8 rak'ah. Right, so we should get up, and includes for the young people in here too. Break your sleep and pray. Get up early and pray. And go in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a state of faqr.
Yeah.
So we're all fuqara to Allah. We're all needy to Allah. The one who is a true faqir is the one who knows that they have nothing and that they are totally dependent on Allah. That's a real faqir. We're all fuqara to Allah. So we go in front of Allah brokenhearted. The second is, what can we do? This relates to enjoying good and forbidding evil. It doesn't take much time to send an email to your congressperson of your district, to the 2 senators in this state, Mr. Peters and Ms. Stabenow, and or pick up the phone and call their office just during office hours and call the White House. It will take you 5 minutes out of the day. This is also, we're talking about enjoining good and forbidding evil, right? And it's not a high-risk activity. You can do it from the comfort of your car, commuting to work. And also for you young people, you can call as well. And if you're not a citizen, you can call as well. When you live in a particular zip code, you're living in Michigan, you are a constituent, right? Even if you're not old enough to vote, you're still a constituent. So we have some people here who are old enough to vote, but you still can pick up the phone and say, I am such and such. I live in your district, and I want you to tell our president to institute an immediate pause or ceasefire, right? You can do that even at the age of 15, 16 years old. You can call your congressperson. So there's something you can do, mm-hmm. right? There is something you can do. And our struggle is different, but we're all being tested right now, right? We're all being tested right now. The thing not to do is just us to sit back and complain only amongst ourselves. That's not the thing to do. And actually, the people who are the mutasawwifin, they would go to the extent that say that we should not even complain to other human beings about the discomfort we're going through. We only complain to Allah. That's what they say. To that extent, the people of Islam, that's what they do. Because they know that true relief doesn't come from people, it comes from Allah. Right? So, but we're all on different spiritual levels. Right? And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us the people of Islam. Amen. Those who worship Allah, they see Allah, not physically seeing Allah with the eyes, but seeing Allah with the heart. This is the maqam of Islam.
Anything else?
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum. Jazakumullah khairan, both of you did an excellent job. last night and today. My question is, I think you guys both touched upon it, is based on the relative comfort that we're living here in the West, and is there like an adab or an etiquette when the ummah is suffering, maybe more so than usual, because there's always suffering, that we should pause or cease certain activities, like maybe the fun that you have or the events that you attend or the entertainment that we may seek and get more serious. Sheikh Dawood and you, Dr. Fareeha, both said to turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, tahajjud, salah, cleanse the heart, all of that. Jazakallah khairan for those points. But like for myself, I feel like maybe certain things would be viewed as irresponsible, and we should make a change in just the day-to-day way we carry out our lives. What would you both say to that? And whether it's Palestine, Burma, Sudan, I mean, there's stuff happening, but now it's at a heightened point, the way the mainstream media is covering it, as well as social media.
You gave me the hard one. Bismillah. Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So I will preface what I have to say by reminding you guys that while I am an American and my heart is with you, the American Muslims and the people of America, very strongly, I do reside overseas. I've been residing overseas for the last 12 plus years, I think. And so I will not pretend to really understand the sensitivity and the emotional pain and the difficulty that you all are facing here. It's different. I mean, we're all suffering. I mean, my friends back in Jeddah, my Saudi friends, have just as much pain from all the things that they're seeing happening with this particular moment. But ours is kind of different. We're in a really even more sensitive situation because, if we face it, it's our country that is actually at war. I mean, Israel seems to be kind of like a proxy for the fact that it's our country that's, if we said no, it would not be happening, right? So I realize that the pain and the difficulty that you face is particular to you in a unique way. So given that kind of disclaimer, what I would say is if you feel guilty about partaking in some kind of a celebratory, this is what you're asking, right? I mean, I hear of people canceling weddings, for instance. I've heard of this recently. Somebody told me this week, like they're thinking about canceling weddings. It's such a somber time. My first initial response to that is, look at the thing and judge it according to the Sharia. Use the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and judge it. If it's you going off to watch a movie with your family and that movie, perhaps might not be the best thing for a Muslim to be doing anyways, right? Then, at the very least, at this difficult time where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is manifesting His kind of jabarut and His kibriya and His power and His wrath, maybe even, a'udhu billah, may Allah protect us, in that moment, look at it and say, do I really need to be doing this right now? Like, I really don't want him to look at me with that kind of a decree. A'udhu billah. So, look at the thing with, if it's marriage, this is the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. You have two young people, I'm assuming they're young, they could be older people, whatever, trying to get married to each other to fulfill the sunnah, maybe what's fard for them. And why would you cancel that? I mean, it doesn't really, there's no Sharia countenance reason where there's a difficulty happening far, far away, and you are in a place where you can act on the sunnah and fulfill your obligation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by getting married and doing good through that marriage. Please, by all means, you should do that thing. And if in your community, if certain kinds of ways of celebrating would be sort of deemed, what's the word that we use for canceling today's event, Imam Dawud? Huh? No, like tone deaf, something like that, right? Like, we were, the Sila Initiative today, the event that we were going to be doing was not this event. We were going to be doing an all-day program with you guys on the prophetic approach to sexual ethics. But one of our people at the, in the program reminded us that, this is maybe not the right time. People are not really, we're not at the mind set or heart set that we could take that kind of teaching at this moment. So taking into account those kinds of considerations, I think is fine. But first and foremost, look at the thing. Is it a laudable thing? Do it. If it's not a laudable thing, don't do it. That should be our criteria anyways. But here and now, I think even more.
I'll add on. So there's different darajat and ranks to things. And this relates to the awareness of the individual. And just like there's Islam and Iman and Ihsan, consciousness, God consciousness and taqwa, there's 3 different levels to this. And the first level is to fulfill the commands and stay away from the prohibitions. This is at the very base level for the awam. Then the second level is to implement what is recommended and stay away from what is, what we could say, distasteful or not recommended, or we could say despised, was makruh. That's the second level of taqwa. The third level is what's known as wara, is having scruples, being scrupulous, that there is something that's lawful for you to do according to Sharia, but if there is a concern of it, number one, leading to israf or leading to waste, and or if it is something that is what would be in bad taste or not the proper adab for the moment, then you would stay away from it out of wara, even though it could be something that is completely halal according to the sacred law. And this is the level of, we could say, akhlaq, or something that we would say is part of tasawwuf. So I could see, for instance, she mentioned the issue of marriage, which is sunnah mu'akkada, right? At the least, Imam Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah ta'ala, actually said that it is wajib. But I could see if someone was Palestinian not having a wedding right now in a walima, because a walima is celebratory. For a non-Palestinian, if you're Desi or African American, that's different, right? But someone who's Palestinian, I could totally see why they would not want to have a wedding right now, especially if they have family members in Gaza, right? I can see that. What I would say is that listen to your inner self, right? And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in a hadith that's well authenticated. This is always the common rule. This is part of wara. Leave what makes you doubt for what does not make you doubt. So if there's any raib or any shak involved, and you think it may be distasteful, not in the proper mood, it's better to postpone or delay that thing than to move forward just because you know it's halal. Like this is not a halal haram issue, is what I'm saying, right? This is something beyond. This is the issue of akhlaq. It's an akhlaqi issue. Wallahu a'lam.
May I add something?
Yeah, sure.
Bismillah. So just one point that's maybe not directly related to your question, but it's something that I mentioned in the talk, and I'd like to emphasize it again, is that communally to celebrate might be seen as distasteful in certain ways, but allowing the events and the things that we're seeing and the pain that we're feeling to affect our disposition such that it changes our behavior within our homes, this is something that we should protect ourselves against. Okay? So if you are, you're here, you're in a state of afiyah, as we mentioned, you say the dua of the Prophet ﷺ out of gratitude to Allah that He has not afflicted you with this difficulty, and then you reflect that cheerful disposition to the members of your family and the people with whom you interact, particularly your children and your wife or your husband, right? So, we want children to come home from school and they are greeted with a cheerful countenance, that they feel safe, that they feel secure. This is your job as a parent. This is your job as a parent to help them feel secure and happy with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? You have been given the conditions by Allah in this moment when many people are in difficulty. You are not in difficulty. Do not squander the opportunity to raise whole, happy individuals as your children. So, if the things are affecting you, making you depressed, making you angry, you have to be vigilant about yourself going down that route. When the father comes home, Assalamu alaikum, happy, hugging his children, that is a humongous impact that will serve to protect the iman of that child in ways that you cannot understand till the end of his life and through your generations till the end of time. That cheerful salam that you as a man give your wife and your children when you come home from work. Right? So we have to be careful, as we said in earlier, the fard ayn and the fard kifaya. This is your fard ayn of maintaining this type of a disposition. Wrap up?
Yeah. Okay. Jazakallah khair to Imam Dawud.